One of the most profound things I've learned in my life is that it's actually not about my hair at all. I've spent a lifetime trying to cover up who I am. And as much as I love a good external transformation, and I do, I much more love a heart transformation. Join me as I share how I work to heal my heart, find happiness, and embrace our hair. Hey guys, welcome back to the It's Not About Your Hair podcast. And this is the mini series, It's Not Your Business, every other week where we just take a little bit of time to talk about entrepreneurship, life behind the chair, life as an entrepreneur, as a female, and all of the things. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about niching down. This was and is, I think, such a hard thing to understand in the beauty industry or in any industry, and something that I am deeply passionate about. I feel like when I first started in the industry, this wasn't anything that was talked about. There was not really people that were niching down and picking something in the industry. And I am, if you don't know, a curly hair specialist, but I haven't always been a curly hair specialist. I used to do, I was a color specialist or a master colorist when I owned the big salon, but I still did everything. I would say that, but I did color, I did cutting, blowouts, and I see this all too often in our industry, especially now that I own salon suites. When we bring a new person in and ask them, we don't really care what you do inside the suite because it's your business, but we want to set people up for success as much as possible. And what I notice is that we often think that the more we do, the more money we'll make. And I read this book one time called Profit First. And it was talking about people that do everything because they think that's going to give them a wider brush. In the hair industry, I'll give you an example. So someone wants to open a suite and they're kind of looking around. They're like, I don't know if this is enough room because I'm doing eyelashes, I'm doing nails, I do hair color, I'll do a facial. And they think that's going to give them more opportunity for clients. But it's kind of confusing. You're also investing more money in more different areas. So now you got to have a waxing table. You have to have all your stuff for lashes. You have to have, and you're also the time it spends to turn over that situation, right? So if you're cleaning up after a lash client and have to take care of all of that stuff to do a nail client, and then you have to take care of all that stuff and then do a hair client, your energy is kind of spent across the board, and you're also having to keep inventory in so many of those different areas. I think we also worry like I might lose that client that's going to go to somebody else. And that was a big fear of mine when I was deciding that. And it was a slow transition for me. So I used to do everything. At one point in the salon, I did nails, I did hair. I would do whatever you needed to have done because I was terrified to lose clients. And now I only do curly hair, cutting and styling. I don't offer color. I have a few clients, but I don't really offer color. And it's not because I don't love it, but I knew I didn't want to work 40 hours a week behind my chair anymore. And I knew that I wanted to do the thing that I'm most passionate about and I help the most people with. I'm going to give you another example that's not in the hair industry that I think is really interesting that was in that book that I read. He talked about a guy that you can make way more money being just a gutter guy because all you need to buy is whatever you need to clean gutters. And so he used the example of all you need is a bucket and some gloves, a ladder, and the ability to do the hard work that no one wants to do. And sometimes we don't see the value in that because all it took was a bucket and some gloves and a ladder. And so you think, oh, I should also do roofing. And so then what does roofing take? It takes a ton more stuff, and you do get to charge more, but you also have more invested and more time. And if you really slow down and think about that, if the gutters, you could do 10 gutters in a day and you're charging 100 for the math, we'll just say you're doing 100, that's $1,000 a day. And all you needed was a bucket, gloves, and a ladder. And you have to understand that the people that hired you to do that really can't do that. So even though it doesn't seem like it's hard or because it's easy for you. That's $1,000 a day with very little overhead. Or you can do a job doing a roof, but now you need a crew, you need all the equipment, you have to go to the store to get the stuff to do the roof, you have to have the cleanup crew. And so we get kind of lost sometimes, I think, in the money that we see coming in, but we don't really understand how it turns over. So again, for me, wanting to niche down into just curly hair, I had to really work on what was my passion and giving up doing color because I wasn't doing enough color to make it worth it to stack it because overhead is expensive, right? So you don't know what your client's going to get color wise. And so you have to have so many colors in order to even do it. And then my overhead. So again, you might be able to charge $200 for a hair color, but you're going to have, again, the less color you do, instead of it being what you do all the time, you're going to have more money invested in that color service because you have to buy all of the stuff for that color. So you have to have foils, color, developers, all of the things to do that color. Maybe you don't do another color because you're doing 75 other things and the overhead is too much. Also, I think a specialty, what's really fun for me about a specialty is I spend all of my time and energy learning that specialty. And so I'm not so divided in my mind and in my things I have to learn, if that makes sense. So by just focusing on curly hair styling, I'm allowing myself more balance in my life because I don't need to learn everything about everything. And I can trust that other people can do it. So when I gave up color, which was hard to do because I would say most of my clients in the beginning of my career were color clients. And that's what we were taught you do. And I worked with an assistant. You do 2 or 3 colors at a time. You have your assistant doing the root bump, someone else doing the blowout, and you're kind of the in-between person. It was such a hustle, quick, non-personal for me. And I didn't realize until I got out of it how much that was like that. Once I stepped away from that hustle a little bit and I began to really explore the journey of slowing down, listening to my clients. And it took me a long time to also charge my worth because most people I know were charging $35 for a haircut. And I said, if I'm going to spend 3 hours with a client teaching them about their curly hair, and I only spent an hour and a half with a color client and had an assistant doing half of it, I'm going to need to make up that money in order to make this worth my time. And I'm also going to have to charge my worth to spend that time with that client. And it took me a long time because curly hair in some ways is easy to me. So maybe I didn't understand the value of it for someone who's not easy for until I realized, you guys, that I'm still doing my own hair. I'm still doing my own hair because I've never had anyone be able to do my curly hair and not feel overwhelmed by it. And what would I pay to have an expert who loves doing my hair, who can teach me about my hair, who takes the time and isn't rushed and has the knowledge? That would be invaluable to me. And when I connected the dot between my value and the service I was giving, and I was like, I'm going to have to charge. So, I charge $300 for a new client appointment. And I know a lot of curly hair specialists charge more than that, some less than that, but that's a 3-hour service. And I am dedicating one-on-one time to that person. Only a new client appointment costs that much, but it had to be that much for me to have the integrity because I could do it faster. I could do a new client appointment in probably an hour and 20 minutes, but I wouldn't be giving the education. I wouldn't be diving in deep to the areas that I think are missing in the market for me to be a specialist and to give that client everything they need to move forward as a curly girl. So for me to transition, I had to feel brave enough to say, I'm not going to rush through this service. And that's what I've been trained to do in the very first part of my career. I'm not in it to just do their hair. I'm in it to educate them. And in order to do that, this is what it will cost. And the first time I charged that, I almost passed out. I thought no one's going to pay it. Well, you guys, because I didn't believe I was worth it. Once you believe you're worth it and you're giving somebody something they can't get anywhere else. I strive to be the very best at what I do and offer the very best experience that I can give. That means the way that I dress when I show up to work. That means how I treat that guest from their experience, from how I tell them they need to come to their appointment, to how they feel when they sit down in my chair, what I offer them to drink, how they leave. Do they leave with notes? Do they understand? Is there a value added to that appointment? If you want to transition into a specialty, make it special. Be special. Do something above and beyond. What I'm seeing right now is the shift in the industry where people want to say that they're a specialist or they're doing something, but they're overcharging and they're under delivering. They're showing up to work late. They're not dressed their best. And that doesn't mean you're dressed like you're going to prom, but just show up looking like you care. You're on time. Your room or your space, your salon is clean. You are in a great mood. You're offering an energy that's good and healing to the person who's sitting in your chair. You're not dumping on them the tragics of your week. And you're educating. I think education is really important. So education that you're always learning, I am always learning, you guys. I find that teaching allows me to continue to learn and grow. Why am I doing it that way? That I can teach better. If I can teach to a room of stylists and they understand, it's going to make me a better teacher to my clients. Also, the retail component of offering the retail component to my clients is very important because I need those products to successfully get that result. And as a stylist, you need to be thinking about that. A lot of people aren't carrying retail or at least having an affiliate link or something, you guys, because you're the expert. We're doing a disservice when that client is coming in, especially if you're a colorist and you're charging them $200, $250, $150 for a hair color, and you don't educate them on why they need to be using color safe shampoo and conditioner, why they need to be using a heat protectant, and they're coming back 6 weeks later and their color's faded, their hair's blown out. You're not telling them about UV protection. This missing link for niching down and understanding and being an expert. Think about, I went to a doctor before, they say no bedside manner, just frank and quick and didn't care. And that's really where we need to show up. I think in a world that technology is taking over, we have a really rare gift that not only do we get to see people, we get to touch them. We get to touch them very personally, and we should make that count. We should make our experiences count. I'm going to ask you to think this week, what is it if you could do anything all day and it wouldn't burn you out, what would it be? Here's the other example I have in niching down. You get to call the rules on that. I only take 1 to 2 new clients a week because I used to take multiple in a day. I will never do that because I don't have the energy for that anymore. It's not that I don't love it, but I had to learn the things that make me perform at my highest level for the people sitting in my chair. So I can't do 2 new client appointments in one day because it's so much energy coming from them and from me. There's a lot of trauma. There's a lot of things that are happening, and it takes a lot of teaching. And so I know I'm very niche down on where I can protect my boundaries. I only work a certain amount of hours, 7 to 3, 3 days a week, 8 to 3, 1 day a week. Like, it's just, what are your best hours that you can give? So for me, generally it's 8 to 3, 1 new client every other day in those 3 days a week, and a balance between express cuts that are only an hour for return clients and full teaching appointments in between, because I need to be at my best. And at my best, I feel worthy of charging my prices. I believe that the services I'm offering are top notch, and I'm making more money than I've ever made in less hours. What do you need to do to simplify what you're doing in your life, in your business, and in your mindset to get clear, to offer the very best to yourself and to others? I hope this helped you this week. I hope you feel great about what you're doing. I hope that you know that you can change anytime you want to. If this helped you, please share it, like, subscribe, hang out with me every week. I guess this is where I ask you to subscribe to my channel, to follow me on social, and to listen wherever podcasts can be found. And join me every Tuesday at 2 as we unpack how to heal your hair, your heart, and your happiness.